What do you want from Junie? Like, what's the plan?
So, obviously, when we were putting this roster together, he and Amar, that was the foundation we were building around. Really confident in that decision. And, what I'm expecting him to do is make a jump. So, what areas specifically? Efficiency, like you saw, I think, from Bruce from year to year. Like, we want to see Junie make a jump in efficiency, which we anticipate he will. He's got to take a jump in his leadership, which he's been phenomenal since we've been together this summer. Been really impressed, ahead of schedule so far, in my opinion, with what he's done from a leadership standpoint. And then he's got to continue to grow as a playmaker. He can do it. He has it within him. He can read the game at a high level. We want him to be a playmaker for us. That's not absent of scoring. We still want him to be really aggressive scoring the ball, but I think you'll see his assist numbers go up, as you saw from freshman year to sophomore year. So those are some of the specific things we're talking about when we say make a jump in those areas.
Defensively, just because he said the NBA that they told him to maybe work on his defense a little bit. I guess you can always work on it.
Yeah, everybody's working on defense, right? But I think you saw he's pressuring the ball more. He's being more physical on the ball. Again, I think he can do it. We got to work at it. It's something we want to do that we haven't really put in yet or talked about yet, but we're seeing a little bit just off the personnel, the ball pressure be better. So he's certainly going to play a role in that.
Justin was very vocal out there. How valuable has his presence been just as a leader, like with physicality?
Yeah, great. So a little kind of behind the scenes when he was on his visit, we're sitting in my office, and his dad's in there, and we're talking, and I told him, hey, we're going to need your voice. You've got proven production at the high major level, and did it on a team that was right there on the cusp of getting in the NCAA tournament. So his experience is valuable for us, and he's got the personality to lead well. He sees things, which helps him lead well, and he's got a personality that connects people. So with his dad sitting there and his dad kind of reinforcing what I talked about, you can tell he took it to heart. He's been here. He's had a great voice in the weight room. He's had a great voice in team meetings. He's had a great voice on the court as well. So that's going to be important for us. We're still developing our leadership team, but I anticipate he'll play a major role in that.
LJ arrived quickly on campus. What does he bring to the program?
Yeah, well, he literally has been here maybe 24 hours, right? But so we're kind of easing him in. There's some certain things got to get caught up on. We're doing a bunch of testing stuff like we did with our other guys. Our team did a great job kind of turning everything around as quickly as possible so he could get out here and get some shots up and get with his team, So, listen, he can really score the ball, and he can score it from multiple levels. And his ability to create gravity on the court where defense has to honor him, even if he's a couple feet behind the line, is a great thing for everybody else. But I think one of the things that, he hasn't always shown at the level he's capable of is his ability to play make too. And he's got good size for a guard, but he sees the game well. And listen, he's younger, inexperienced, but he's talented. So it'll be a process, but it's great having him here. There's been a lot of work to get that done, and we're excited to have him and excited to see his growth here, starting really next week.
Why did you guys make the decision to bring him in a year early?
Yeah, great question. So when the roster was taking shape, and there had been some conversations even going back to, call it towards the end of his high school season, that, hey, this could be a possibility. It was initiated by them. We had some initial conversations. Then it really kind of shifted to, hey, we think, maybe that's not best right now. So those conversations started happening again later in the spring, and we watched him in Memphis. He was with his AAU team, and felt like he could come in, have an impact, add value to the roster as it had formed, and so we had that conversation. But in order for this to work, everybody had to be on the same page, and so it just took kind of just transparent dialogue to get to that point. And once we realized everybody was on the same page, hey, this is good for him, it's good for us, then it was, all right, how do we get this done? So it was an ongoing process, kind of, I guess we'll say fluid, okay? But we felt like really excited about our backcourt, but we needed another piece. And we want to be able to shift between playing bigger at that third perimeter position we're also playing 3 true guards, and having that versatility, we needed another piece to do that. And
when you are bringing in someone early like that, does it temper expectations at all when they should still technically be a high school senior? Like, does that change at all what you would expect from them?
I'm expecting him to be impactful. What that impact looks like, ultimately, he's going to decide. But he's got a high basketball IQ, and he's talented, and he's got a skill set that'll translate right away. So beyond that, in my mind, it's, hey, there's a baseline level of impact that I'm expecting, and then leaving room for this ceiling that he's ultimately going to push up. And so that's my expectations. You guys might have other ones, but I'm expecting him to impact winning, and from there, what that looks like, how much that is, like, time will tell. But I think there's no question he wouldn't be here if we didn't feel like he was going to have an impact on this team.
What about Anthony in the same vein? As far as he's a freshman, but you knew he was going to be here, right? And so, same vein of expectations impacting winning. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think, again, when you got talented young players, there's nothing wrong with expectations, but I think you got to leave room in those expectations for them to determine ultimately what it looks like. And kind of felt that way when I was here and D'Angelo Russell was here, right? And felt that way when I was coaching Darius Garland for 5 games. But so, like, I think when you have talented young players, certainly okay to have expectations, but you almost got to let them determine and push ultimately what it ends up being as far as how high that ceiling goes. Because we've seen in this program, right? We've seen a guy like Malachi Branham, who first half of the season was good, impacted winning, but took a major jump second half of the season and ends up being a one and done. So oftentimes I think if we set a certain, whether it's minutes, points, whatever, right, you said, then that can oftentimes cap maybe what a guy could grow into, because they could get discouraged or they could get frustrated. Like, I want them to know we believe in them, both those guys. We believe in them. They're both going to impact winning for us. And I'm excited to see certainly how they play for us in November, because we need them to play well with our schedule, but also who they are as a player in January is going to look different. And that's exciting.
Amari looked leaner. How has he changed since the season ended?
Yeah, he's worked really hard. He's had a great spring. Spent a lot of time with us, spent a lot of time with his trainer and things, and we've had dialogue with them back and forth, making sure everybody's on the same page. In basketball now, like, each guy almost has a little team around him. And so what we try to do in our program is just keep constant communication. Make sure our guys have the resources, all right, to grow. And he has pushed really hard. So I think you're seeing his body change a little bit. You saw his game is changing a little bit. He's playing with confidence on the perimeter. He's got confidence on the interior. Really excited about the player he's going to be this year.
What have you said to guys like Amari and Junie in terms of they're taking on that leadership role, but they don't have to be like a Bruce Thornton. They can be their own kind of leader.
Yeah, be authentic. We're going to spend a lot of time this summer talking about leadership, because I want each guy, to grow as a leader. Certainly for while they're here at Ohio State, but when they're, a husband or a father or running a company someday, like, all these guys could use growth in that area. So the key is they got to be authentic. They can't try to be somebody else when they're leading, because people can see through that. So, we have to empower them, right? It's part of my job is to empower them and help them, and sometimes it's simple, a conversation like, hey, that's like, in that moment right there, that's when I need you to say something. And then they grow and learn from that stuff. But both of those guys have embraced it. And so you probably noticed their voice a lot. You felt their energy. And it's going to be important for us, but they can't try to lead like someone else, can't try to be like me. They got to be the best version of themselves to do it well.
His voice was noticeable out there. Is that the way he's always been? Is that new?
I think he's grown in that year to year, but when he and I sat down in the spring and I told him, you're year 3, I'm year 3, like, you got to reflect what we're about. And he's embraced that. He's done a great job. This has been the best off season he's had to date, and his size is certainly noticeable, and it can be a real factor. And we believe, again, he's a guy who can really help this team. So when you've been in a program and we talk about, values and culture and standards, and like you can't be here for 3 years and not reflect that. Now, that sends a bad message to everybody else. So he's embraced that, and I've been impressed with his spring and the work he's put in.
The feeling of last year, we got to get to an NCAA tournament. You did it. I know you want to get back. Does it feel different coming in this year because you had that experience last year, or I'm sure there's a hunger to do it again. Is there a different sense or vibe with that?
You know, going into last year, I didn't wake up and say like, hey, we got to make the tournament. Like that wasn't the goal or the target. Like we're trying to strive for, you know, something more than that. It was an important step for us to make. Sure. There's no question. I'm not denying that, but you know, we didn't make it to the tournament last year and essentially come up a possession short and sit back and make like, oh, that was great, right? Let's just relax and, you know, try to run it back. So our mentality has been there's a process aspect to getting this program back to where it belongs. The starting line across the country is different for everybody for obvious reasons, right? Like there's factors that aren't the same. But we're growing, we're pushing, we're raising the level, and that's the expectation. The expectation is to raise the level again. That's my expectation, right? I want to raise our level again, and not one game or win 2 more. Like I'm striving for the peaks of this program. Like that's my mentality and approach every year. It's hard to do. We play in the toughest league in the country. All right. So, and you know, we got some factors that we got to fight through and grow in, but we are. I think that's encouraging, and I'm excited about this team, and I think this team is built to put us in position to do that.
You've talked about the depth on this team and increasing that as a big part of, or point of emphasis building the roster. Can you give us an example of how you've already maybe seen that different depth have an impact?
Yeah, well, I think when you go back to evaluating last year, that was an area that I felt like hindered ultimately our ceiling was our lack of depth. So kind of what I'm saying, right? We didn't just go in and say, let's run it back, right? Let's find a way to get better. We had to get more depth. And I think you saw it today, right? You saw multiple guys make plays. You know, I feel like the overall talent has increased, which obviously helps our depth. But you have multiple guys out there that can make plays and make shots. And we have depth in the front court. We have depth in the back court. We have versatility where we can shift. We have true lineup depth. And, you know, that's what we want. And I think, you know, looking at last year, when we had a guy go down and get hurt, it impacted us more than I would like for it to impact us. And so I think we're built, right? You know, hopefully, right, we don't have to have a guy miss a couple months like we did last year. But in the event that something happens out of our control, I feel like we're positioned to handle and absorb that kind of hit better. And you look at our league last year, and you look at, you know, the top 4 or 5 teams that finished in that range of our league. They were healthy. They had good depth. So, you know, we needed to get better in those areas.
You had to recruit that depth. So what have you learned in 3 years? This is the kind of team I got to have versus what I've had.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, there's a certain roster makeup you got to have to be competitive in the Big Ten, and I feel like we're in that position now. And then, you know, need a little bit of luck to some degree, right? Some of this is out of our control, but we're also learning. We're analyzing the data that we're recording all season long, embracing the sports science aspect of this, and we're making adjustments. We're utilizing that data to try to be healthier, be better positioned to you know, go on a deep run. We took year 1 data to year 2 and applied it. You know, a tangible way to see it is, I think you saw, if you followed us, year 1 we almost plateaued a little bit at the end of the season. Well, this year we were rising, and so that was like intentional. We took a lot of information to come up with a plan and adjust the plan to be able to do that. So that's an example of what I'm talking about. So yeah, we got unbelievable resources here. Our sports science department's unbelievable. We got a performance team, and Dave Richardson has already like we felt his impact in that space, and how we're applying the information we're collecting now is gotten even better. So I think it's going to help us down the stretch.
You kept yelling make a .5 decision in practice. What does that mean? Why are you hammering that home so much?
Yeah, I'm going to let Mike Wells speak on that more specifically when you guys talk to him. But that's a concept he brought in. It's an NBA concept. And essentially we're trying to speed up our decision-making process and not hold the ball, let the ball stick, go nowhere with the dribble, right? So ball swung, we're telling you I make a .5 decision. That's half a second decision. And really you gotta be ready. You gotta anticipate a little bit. You gotta get a feel, and part of it is reading where your man is, what kind of closeout you anticipate. So it takes time to develop that, but that's why we're driving it home so much, because we'll find a way to create an advantage. That's a great way to keep an advantage, right? Is once you get them in rotation, get them in a long closeout, now you're getting a second paint touch, or you're getting to the rim for a finish, or you're creating a driving kick. So you'll hear, you guys come watch it, you're gonna hear us yelling that. I probably get annoyed a little bit, but so you understand why we're doing it. We're trying to keep that ball moving, keep that defense in rotation, and keep our advantage once we create it, and use that to create the advantage sometimes. But Mike will be able to give you a little more detail on that. He brought that to the program.
In this era, you can no longer just be a coach. You have to be fundraiser, CEO. What have you grown sort of as a fundraiser?
Unfortunately, unfortunately, I spent a lot of time in that area. It's a requirement of being the head coach at Ohio State with just the setup we have here. So I'm thankful that we have some people that have come alongside our program and really supported us in a big way. But I never would have anticipated having to spend as much time in some of those areas as I do now, being the head coach at Ohio State. But that's fine, and I've had to get better at it, and it's so critical, right, to the success of our program that got no choice. But I guess maybe I could have a future in development. No, it's been. We got great people around us. The support's been really good, and I'm not on an island there, and that's beneficial, right? Like, we got a team of people who are helping. But as you know, my time is valuable in that space, so I gotta spend a lot of time. That's why I built the staff the way I have, to allow me to do that, but also spend, most importantly, time with our players.
Seems like you're already a people person. Has there been any specifics where you have to apply that in these areas?
I would just call me a relationship person, more than anything else, and I think that applies in this space certainly. Building real relationships, like we provide an intimacy, I think, to our program, and an accessibility that people enjoy, and we have to continue to do that. But for me, it's fun building relationships and getting to know people. That's my coaching style, is building relationships with players and putting them first and serving them. So it's less kind of people, more relationship driven for me, as to that space. But just in general, it's kind of how my mind works in that.
Last couple. Good.
Cool.
Thanks for coming by, guys.
Everything set? How would you describe this year's group so far?
Oh man, all around good guys, outside the court, but on the court, guys that play hard, guys that understand the culture, also understand our values as well, understand our offense, how to get around and stuff like that. But, overall, it's good guys.
John, you got a decision to make in the offseason whether you were going to follow the NBA route or come back.
Yeah.
What went in? Can you take us through that process, I guess, what that was like, getting the feedback you got and the decision then to stay?
Yeah, obviously going in, with both feet in, going in to do, everything, the intentions of going to the NBA. Got good feedback. I've always, my heart was always at Ohio State. I'm a loyal guy. Never want to be anywhere else besides home. So, just, talking over with Dee, the feedback, my agent and stuff like that. So, got the right feedback we wanted, came back, and I know what to work on.
What is that feedback? What kind of things do they tell you in that?
Yeah, just, being more aggressive on the defensive end and also on the offensive end as well. Showing more finishing, in the mid-range area and around the rim.
How does that line up with the way that Coach Diebler wants you to play this year? How does that fit into the role that you hope to have on this team next year?
Lines up perfect. It's nothing, I haven't done before. So, just getting back, keeping all that in touch. Just been doing it since I was a kid. So just staying in the gym, working on it, and it'll show.
You've got a new backcourt to get
Yeah.
to get to know. What has that been like? You've been with Bruce for so long,
Yeah.
and now it's kind of a new era.
It's good. It's always gonna be change. Sometimes in your life. All love to Bruce. But it's good. Got getting to know the guys real well, like JP, Jimmy, Kurt. All those guys. So just trying to figure each other's out. What's our strong suits on the court, and yeah.
Your shirt says made for March.
Yeah.
What do you feel is your role to get back there and to kind of lead your team back there?
I know what it takes. Got there last year. Obviously, came up short, but we know what it takes to get there. There's guys on this team that's been there before. So, just staying in the gym, keep working hard, and when that season comes, we got to show what we can do.
What have those battles been like with Justin? We saw a little bit of it today, but what is it like you two going against each other?
It's good. It's always good to compete. I feel like that's how you gain the most respect. So, us just going at each other, knowing at the end of the day we brothers. At the end of the day we gonna fight together. So, just us doing that, knowing that he on the same type of timing. That's good to know. Have a partner outside you and go on the court.
You expect Justin to do one of the moves?
Of course, yeah. He has, a lot of experience. He's with the team up north. Yeah, he's a team up north. Then he went, played a big role at, ACC. So, that's a great conference as well. So he has a lot of experience, and that's good, coming into this year.
How's it been getting used to Coach Rich?
It's been an adjustment. Love Coach Rich. He has, great stuff. Also, all love to Q. That's my guy. But love Coach Rich. He has great stuff. He knows what we need to translate onto the court. And yeah.
How ready are you to be even more of a face? Like you said, getting so used to Bruce, and now there's a lot of new guys on the team. You're one of the most experienced players on this roster. Like, what does that feel like, and does that change anything for your approach this offseason?
Definitely does. Definitely, a lot more not a lot more. I would say a little bit more to carry. Bruce was, a great leader, led by example. Also more vocal as last year. So just trying to, not be like him, but fill in those shoes as well, but doing it in my own way as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.